Good evening and welcome to the FinCom meeting of Thursday, April 10th, 2025. We are meeting here in Town Hall. First order of business is approval of minutes. We actually have two sets of minutes. The first one was from our March 27th meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Eric. Is there, and second by Sarah. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or you abstain? Okay, that's unanimous. And then we have a second set of minutes, which are from our April 8th meeting, which was our joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. We didn't take any votes that evening other than the motion to adjourn, but we did want to document that we held that meeting. So I know those were obviously a last minute thing that you guys got, but
Motion to approve.
all right, thank you, Eric. Is there a
I
second?
will second.
Thank you, Alan. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
And Sarah abstains. Okay, so that carries as well. All right. Next order of business is to review and vote on the FY26 budget book. I know, Jeff, that some parts of the budget book are obviously still in process, but the section that we had reviewed at our last meeting, there were some edits since then, and I think there were a few other things we still wanted to discuss about, like order and stuff like that. So I think we can review that tonight.
Okay.
And then finalize that. The other thing is that the chair usually writes a letter for the beginning of the budget book. I had thought I was going to take a draft of that last night. I struggled. I found last year's letter, and I was trying to figure out like how this year's letter should be different. Honestly, I was looking at last year's letter and thinking, you know, we're in a very similar situation to
Change the
last
date.
year. Yeah, exactly. So I thought I would kind of take a little bit of a poll here and see if you guys could give me some suggestions, and then I can take a stab at writing that letter. And then, is there anything? I don't think there's really anything else in that we need to approve, right, Jeff? Like
No,
we'll get
everything
the
right now is going to be planned to be the same as last year.
yeah, and it
So,
will
should be the same.
obviously the detailed budgets, which we've already approved.
Yep.
Tony
Yes.
writes a letter.
Tony's letter, you have the letter,
Yep.
the budget details, and then there'll be some, what we call the schedules afterwards, so the water sewer budget will be in there. The full-time employees, the grids for the schools, the town, the details of all the departments. Again, we've tried to streamline that a little bit, so it's not such a long narrative from some departments, very short from others. And then the changes of line items, the description, so that'll be in there as well.
Okay.
So no
Can
changes
you
from
share
last year.
those things with us then?
Once I have everything, yeah. So I did get the school budget in today. We got it in tonight, so we should be good to put most of it together tomorrow. So by early next week, I can have something out to you
Okay.
with most of the sections. Actually, all of them should be done at that point.
Okay, good.
Because I do want to bring it over to the printer, hopefully Wednesday, if I can, after the Board of Selectmen's meeting Tuesday night where they sign the warrant, because I don't have a signed annual town meeting warrant yet either.
Right.
So once I have that, I can get it. That'll be the last piece.
Right. And there, I mean, we could put the special. I guess typically we don't put the
We
special
don't put
in
the
there.
special, just the annual,
Just
correct.
the annual. Okay.
I had one edit in the definitions for the overlay account.
Yes.
Does it say it's for abatements and exemptions? The word "and exemptions" was that? I can't remember if I made that comment before. And the reason I raised it is because there is an article about adding another exemption, and it talks about the overlay account. I wanted the two to match. You have it there.
Overlay, granting appropriation changes, tax abatements granted and avoiding.
Yeah, it should say abatements and exemptions.
Okay,
So, and then that dovetails with the article.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to approve the budget book?
Actually, I want to make another change.
Okay.
First.
All
Can we put the dashboard at the front of that section? Not the checklist, which is not like a dashboard, but to me,
I think
dashboard
it's there, right?
insists that it's first.
Which
Oh, is it
dashboard?
there now?
The dashboard is this, yeah.
That's the first page you wanted, right?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the first
Okay,
page,
all right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So I looked at what Jeff sent.
Oh, was there something
Draft
else?
number
like
3,
Oh,
this was
maybe
back
I-
in April 1st, I think.
Okay, maybe
so-
I missed
Yeah, it's a
draft number 3.
It's an email, not in our Google Drive, I don't think. I couldn't find it in Google Drive. I went back to the email.
Okay.
That's where you see the highlighted parts of the financial policies as well.
Yeah, so that was a good change.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So right after that, it looks like then the next thing is all that, the financial policy checklists. What do you guys think? Should that be next? To me, I feel like that's so much text that it belongs at like nearly the back.
I would agree.
Then it's followed by the revenue assumptions. What do you think about that? That's also a lot of text.
Yeah, that's, I think, because you're promoting the checklist, the financial policies, to get to the budget document. So right there, you have some things, we have some things highlighted that we aren't following per se.
Okay. Yep.
So it's not a bad, I think it's a pretty good read through on how you do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Because then you get to the tax levy, you're working your way to the budget and then to all the
Right.
parts of that and the parts that make up the budget. So
Okay.
Right.
I don't think it's terrible.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
I do think it's kind of important to highlight that we're not following our.
Yes,
I mean,
I
that's
agree.
kind of our
Well, that was
mantra
the reason why
right
it was
now.
put there.
Right,
was
yep.
that
Right.
we're
Right.
following the rules or we're not.
Right.
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 When we initially put that in.
Yeah. Okay. So now I guess, Alan, I think we're ready to make a motion to approve.
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, Anne. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right. Thank you. Since we are still on the topic of FY26 budget book, any recommendations on what this letter should say?
I'm thinking you might want to put in anything that's not already in there that was in the memo that went to the selectmen. And in
That
particular,
what? I'm sorry.
the memo that went to the selectmen, if there's information in there that's not already in that letter from last year, I would add that in. In particular, I think the discussion about the fact that the tax levy goes up $3 million and our fixed cost for pensions and healthcare went up $3 million.
I think
Right.
I
that's
think
critical.
that's a very important
Yeah,
point to make.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's gone, you know?
Yeah. And I think a lot of what you say in the letter may be dependent upon what the selectmen do with the warrant, particularly the special, or would you like or do you want the letter in the budget book to be restricted primarily to the
Fiscal year 20.
fiscal year budget, and then in our presentations to town meeting, the night of town meeting, we could, and for the special, we could, if there are issues we have, we could highlight them then.
Right, and we do send the pink sheet out. We will meet on May 1st, take final votes, send a pink
Okay.
sheet out. The pink sheet actually includes a letter as well.
Yep.
So if there's something in particular we want to say about the specials,
Yeah.
really, I think it's the one special. I don't
Okay.
think we as a board are going to take
No.
a position on the land use
Right.
special. But if there's something we want to say about the special, then we could do it in that letter.
Okay.
And so maybe
Makes more
focus
sense,
this
yeah.
one on
Makes more sense,
Yeah.
yep.
annual town meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
you talk about the
I mean-
reserve funds, and you flip over the page, and
Yeah.
there's the reserve funds on the
Yeah.
back. so it
Right,
goes
yeah.
together.
Yep.
I
Okay.
think the significant use of cash is important.
Right.
That's kind of obvious. I don't think we should sugarcoat that at all.
Yeah, and sustainability thereof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think if we talk about the use of cash, I think we should say that the FinCom, something to the effect of, how the FinCom feels about using significant amounts of free cash the subsequent fiscal year also, which is why we should be very careful, you know, with the budget and what we approve.
Yeah.
Because I'm just concerned that there are some people who feel that they can get by again simply by using free cash and not making the decisions that have to be made.
I think the shorter we can make it to, the better, just to
Right.
be very, like,
Yeah.
succinct, because those are our biggest concerns. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not to be negative, but like, let's put out what we feel as clearly as we can.
Yeah.
Because
I think that makes sense. To
people
just,
will stop reading, you know, I
Right.
wouldn't go through like the whole budget process and like that we had to,
Yeah.
that they did cut, which was wonderful that they did reduce their original request, but I'm not sure I would get lost in that stuff this.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, the memo to the Board of Selectmen was like 4 pages long.
Yeah.
Right.
This is usually 1 page, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it goes on to a second if we
Yeah.
really want.
Yeah, and you may want to do bullet points, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
probably.
I like
I
bullet
do
points,
too.
that's my preference,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting you copy the memo. just
No, I
a few-
understand,
A few
right.
salient
Yeah,
points
Right,
from,
right,
yeah.
right. I
Yeah.
just
The
wanted
memo
to
was
set
pretty
expectations that,
straightforward, so,
right,
yeah.
we needed to kind of trim it back a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, looking at what I wrote in last year's letter, it was basically like, you know, there's sort of a good news, bad news situation. Good news was that we were in like generally good financial situation, that we had like good reserves, that we still had AA plus bond rating, that we, you know, things were looking like we were financially healthy, but that we had this problem. But I think this year it's appropriate to just kind of focus on the structural deficit.
Just
and-
badges.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think when we do our presentation, our verbal and PowerPoint presentation to town meeting, that will be more of a good news, bad news story, right? We'll be able to tell more of the story.
Okay.
But for the letter, let's focus on keeping it brief and,
okay.
okay.
Don't spend.
Yeah.
Do not ask for another penny because you're not getting it. What? Did I say that?
We're not
No,
giving you
just
any
to
money,
consider
period.
what's coming.
Right, okay.
Is that helpful?
Yes, that is very helpful. And I will send you guys a draft and welcome your feedback, but try to get it to Jeff no later than Wednesday.
Tuesday would be great. So
But I'm
I think
waiting.
Wednesday.
Oh, I guess, yeah, we decided we don't need to wait
Right,
for the Board of
right,
Selectmen.
yeah.
I was thinking I
Yeah.
need to wait for the Board of
No,
Selectmen,
you
but if
don't.
I'm not waiting for them, then yes, I can get it to you, yeah,
So
Tuesday.
hopefully I get the warrant on Wednesday and send it over
Can we
there and we
send
get
you
it done.
2?
You can send me,
letters?
you can send me 3 if you want.
Yeah.
Only put one in the book.
Just trying
Pick
to
and
figure
choose.
out where we are, you know, and all of the things that have been going on.
Chairman's letter and dissents.
Which one do we put in now?
Do I
We'll
have
be
an
putting
army of
letters
clerks
in.
helping me
Yeah,
write this?
Concurring opinions, you know.
Yeah.
You agree with this, but not with that. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
Anything else about the budget book?
Hmm?
Anything else about the budget book? I think we're ready, right, to move on.
Yeah.
So the next item on our agenda is to talk about the special town meeting articles. So as we just mentioned, the Board of Selectmen has not yet voted on a warrant for the Board of Selectmen. For the special town meeting, sorry, looking at things while I'm talking. So that, you know, is a little bit of a challenge for us, but in some ways it's not unusual for the FinCom to vote on our recommendations before the warrant is finalized. And if we make votes tonight, and then we're gonna vote again on May 1st for the very final numbers for the pink sheet. So we can, if something changes between
We can adjust.
now and then, we make adjustments. Okay, so we have a draft of the yellow sheet, which is not yellow, but this is the yellow sheet, right, Jeff? And then this is the actual warrant.
I don't think we have a draft of the
We got
yellow
it
sheet.
in
We
the
have the
email.
annual town, oh,
You do,
okay.
it's in with the special town meeting warrant.
Oh,
Oh, okay, sorry.
You're probably gonna have
Stapled
yellow-
together,
Yellow
yeah.
sheets
Oh,
upstairs.
Oh, here it is, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yellow,
Okay. Okay, got
it's
it.
labeled yellow sheet, it just isn't.
Perfect.
all right. Yeah, it is.
No, that's okay. All right. Or actually, in the annual town meeting,
It's only the budget and CPC.
is that where the,
The CPC is usually
all
there.
right, we already voted on the CPC article, so there's nothing to
Okay.
vote. Unpaid bills, does that go in the annual or in the special?
It's in the special.
That's in the special, okay. So there's nothing else that we need to vote on for the annual, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. All right, so I think it's gonna be easier to follow the yellow sheet because that one actually has some numbers in it, right? Okay, so the first proposed article is Article 1 for a transfer in snow and ice. Jeff, do you want to explain this?
Yeah, so per our last discussion, this is the one known deficit we have for this year, so the decision was made to put it on the town meeting warrant. It's basically snow and ice, they use internal services, internal overtime versus contracted services. So there's still a surplus overall in the budget, but we need to address the actual budget line item for snow and ice removal overtime.
Right. So we're not asking town meeting to appropriate any additional funds here. We're asking them to make an adjustment to
Just
the
a transfer.
budget that we voted last May.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a motion to recommend this transfer?
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you, Eric, seconded by Alan. Any further discussion? All right, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. The next article would be the Special Education Stabilization Fund. Here, there is no number listed. The number that the schools have requested is $880,959. That is based on reaching the maximum allowed based by the state law, based on their formula.
Yeah. that's Also consistent with our memo.
Yes, it is consistent with our memo and what we had previously, well, I don't think we had actually taken a vote here on the number, but our memo,
Yeah.
just recommend.
Yeah.
We agreed that it was a good idea to maximize.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, would someone like to make a motion to recommend that?
So moved.
Thank you, Alan, seconded by Anne.
Yeah.
All right.
It's just one question for clarification. So in the event that that number is amended or changed by the Board of Selectmen, are you then taking you'll take another vote, right?
Yep.
We could take
Yeah.
another vote,
Okay.
yeah, we absolutely can take another vote on May 1st. If they have another recommendation, we would consider it. I think the way the warrant is written, it probably, the warrant, our warrant article is general enough that we could make this motion for $880,959, even if the Board of Selectmen recommended a lower number. They can't recommend more because we can't go higher than that.
Right, unless something gets spent out of the current fund. The
Right.
current-
Yeah.
What would go into the yellow sheets?
The yellow sheets is the Board of Selectmen's recommendation.
Okay.
Pink sheet is us.
The pink sheet is us.
So we're approving, not the yellow sheets, we're approving the
We're using the
articles.
yellow sheets as a guideline for
Okay,
us to
approve
have a
the
conversation.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, to keep us organized. But
Yeah.
yes, we cannot approve the yellow sheets.
Yeah, that's what the amount that we have is this, what we put in our memo, what the school committee asked for, so it just, whatever reason hasn't been written in here yet, so.
Okay.
All right, so any further discussion on that? If not, let's put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, okay. The next item on this is appropriation for school technology needs. This is their typical spring capital outlay request. And it's a total amount of 70,000, is that right, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion on this?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you, Sarah. Motion by Ann, second by Sarah. Any other discussion? We'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next item is appropriation to a Mass Health Medicaid expenditure. This is something that would allow the schools to start a program. They would give them seed money to get started so that in the future they can take income from Medicaid reimbursements to fund certain positions in the schools.
Just a logistical question. So is this going to go into a particular line item? And should that line item be mentioned?
No, so this is going to be a supplement to their budget, and it's going to be kind of handled off of the system for now. It's a free cash appropriation.
Okay.
So there's an accounting line item that we will work on, and then we will determine at the end of the year the proper reporting structure for that.
And then
It's typically into a separate fund, if you want to call it that. So we
Okay.
have Fund 1 is general fund, Fund 3 is the school fund, Fund 2 is where this will go. That's where our free cash articles go, and we'll spend out of that.
So in future years, this cost would probably be in a line item in the budget.
Correct, so it will be in the school's budget, correct?
School budget in
Yeah.
a line item, okay.
And there's an income source that they have to pay for this in the future?
Well, that will, again, that's the determining factor. Is
Yeah.
we have the $350,000 base number that we're looking at the Medicaid reimbursement.
Mhm.
So it's whatever's above that is we're going to look at as the additional income to fund these positions going forward.
Okay, because I get that, but they're asking for 3 positions. So to fund 3 positions, I mean, I don't know what those positions, how much they're gonna cost. I mean, whether it's, I'll just pick a number, $200,000 for the 3 positions. So in order to basically fully fund those, Medicaid expenses have to be $350 plus $200.
Correct.
Essentially?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay,
And one of the positions that they are adding will be, I don't know if it's being paid for from this, but isn't, like, one of the positions that they're adding someone who's going to help with the paperwork that needs to be done to
Yes,
get
yes.
this reimbursement.
No, I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's the case that adding these positions, the one position will assist in needing a block of time for the others to properly
Okay.
record and allow for billing.
Okay,
Because I think the problem right now is they don't have time to do it, so they're not maximizing their billing opportunity.
right.
So that's what
Okay.
the superintendent mentioned, said this will give people 15-minute blocks or some time to actually record what they've done, send it in, and again, I don't know who's going to, then somebody will be in charge of sending it in for the reimbursement.
okay. So the theory is that setting up these new positions should be able to help us, because it'll be more efficient, generate more income, which in turn should pay for these positions, and that's the theory.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay?
So again, we'll be looking at this next year, determining do we need to put additional monies into that? If there's enough revenue, any of the revenue or any of the free cash that's left over will fall to free cash next year.
Yeah.
It can't be used for their budget. They can't use it for
Yeah.
anything else in their budget.
Yeah, or it may be that, we don't generate enough money at all to pay for those. And given a difficult fiscal year, we may have some, and the school department may have some tough decisions to make.
Correct.
Mhm.
Again, it'll be
As long as
evaluated at the
it's
end of this.
understood in those terms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion on this? Would someone like to make a motion?
Motion to recommend?
All right,
Second.
thank you, Eric, seconded by Alan. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next item is Article 5. Is this actually a financial article?
Technically, it is because we will then be allowed to submit for reimbursement.
Okay,
But But is there actually an appropriation at this point?
Well, there's no appropriation, it's more of a revenue opportunity,
Okay,
Okay.
so,
So we could recommend it, but there's, yeah.
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 okay.
All right, is there, are any questions about this before we? All right, would someone like to make a motion to recommend?
So moved.
Thank you, Alan. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, okay. Next item is Article 6, appropriation for a general government and school integrated hiring system. I believe Mr. Mizuko mentioned this briefly when he was at one of our meetings. He was talking about adding a feature to our Munis system to make some of our work more efficient. So, are any other questions about this?
How much are they looking?
150,000.
150,000, okay.
And this is free cash?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
One time?
Yeah.
One time, yes.
Yeah. I think this is like the ideal use of free cash, right? If we can
Right.
do a one-time thing that's then going to make us more efficient going forward, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Would there be an ongoing software cost, or?
We have no, this includes the module, so.
Okay, once you buy it, you've got it.
Correct,
Okay.
and it's incorporated in our current Munis package anyways, so.
It's just using something we've already got, so, okay.
Correct. So again, the 150 is for the online, for the onboarding, training, school substitute, there's a number of things for the school side that this will make much more efficient on their end.
Motion to recommend?
Thank you, Sarah. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Article 7, additional appropriation for water tank design and replacement.
So this is a new one, just added. It is a placeholder right now, we're not sure it's going to go forward. Bottom line is, we opened the bids for the water tank replacements, and surprise, they were much higher than anticipated. So we are working with the MWRA to make sure the SRF, we're still eligible, looking at opportunities to see if we push this a little bit, maybe wait, because obviously the opening, I don't know if the tariffs were mentioned in this, but obviously there was less of a response than we wanted. So it's in here right now
From who?
from the market,
Okay.
Bidders.
All right.
yeah.
Can you remind me how much was originally appropriated?
14 million.
14 million, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'd
Three and a
like
half is a
to,
lot.
yeah, I mean, I'd like to hold on this, maybe have some further explanation.
Correct,
you
and
know,
that's why
before
it's a
May.
placeholder right now. We definitely
Yeah.
will. We want to understand if we can postpone it, if the SRF funding is still there, because that's a low-interest loan.
Yeah.
Right.
So if we risk of losing that, this will have to go forward. So that's
Okay.
the biggest factor right now.
Okay, so can we hold off on voting on this until May 1?
You can, because it may not show up on the actual.
Okay.
And if we were to, this would be an appropriation for additional borrowing against water and sewer rates.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. It's not a free
Okay.
cash.
Not a free
thing.
cash, no.
No.
This is borrowing through the SRF at low interest rate, and again, paid by the enterprise fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will.
Okay.
And being very new, obviously, the capital outlay committee has not looked at this at all.
Okay.
Right, so the SRF loan was only for the proposal of 14, so you have to go back to them to see whether they would be willing to increase it.
Number one, increase or extend the duration so it doesn't expire.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because I suppose conceivably we could do 14 million at the lower rate and do the 3.5 at a different rate. It doesn't have to all be,
Well, it would all be the same rate through that, the financing facility, yeah.
if the state will allow us to increase the amount, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Because again, we don't want to go out and borrow this in the market, so.
right.
Hmm.
Okay, well, keep us posted on that, please.
We will.
All right. The proposed Article 8 is appropriation for the compensated absences reserve fund. This here is proposing 250,000, which is also the number we had been working with. Is there a motion for a recommendation on this?
Motion to recommend?
Thank you,
Second.
Eric. Thank you, Alan. Any further discussion? All right, put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay. You know what, let's skip over the capital stabilization fund for a minute. Let's talk about 11, which is a pension reserve fund, and 12 recommends is putting in a number of $1 million, which is the number that we had, that I think Tony had originally recommended and that we had put on our spreadsheet, because then that was gonna get us to a little over 10% of the free cash having been transferred to reserves. Is there any discussion on this one?
On Article 11,
And 12?
motion to approve.
So, second.
All right. And if there's no other discussion, then all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
We're doing it in both, right? 11 and 12 together?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 11 and 12, yeah. Unpaid bills, 21, 41,
All lawyers,
19.
practically.
Yeah. Is there a reason why we don't have a date for the fourth one, like a full date?
Yes, because it's over a period of time.
Oh, over a period of time.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
trying to get the information from them. They don't have it. It's an odd situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is Stericycle?
I forget what this one is. Put me on the spot, I forgot.
I'm sorry.
I'll look into it and let, hang on,
Yeah.
I'll gotta find it. 'Cause I know we have it.
Yeah, I'm just curious on the first two, which I believe, I believe are attorneys. Do we know what those are for?
I don't.
Okay,
Yeah, the last one's town council.
yeah.
Yeah. Again, there's just,
Anderson Krieger, wasn't that the auditors?
no.
No,
No,
that's
Anderson and Krieger,
They do the
they're
airport.
also a legal
the
firm.
airport, okay.
And it's
Yeah.
only $43.
Yeah, well,
There's a couple
bills that
I know.
I mean, to me,
Legal
giving
bill,
Yeah.
away
$40
even
it's a
$4 is, you know, is a lot, but, you know, no offense intended. But yeah,
All right.
motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we're unanimous support of paying our bills.
And
Good thing
you
it's a
said
big
a
go.
memo from me saying get all your bills, you know, we're sending that out next week and having everybody get planned, but every year we seem to have these, so.
The public shaming of having to go to town meeting and
Yeah.
ask for the money
It
isn't
shouldn't be
enough
done
of
enough,
a.
exactly.
By the time we get to that, and it's $2,000, unfortunately.
Right.
Nobody's paying attention.
3 hours of discussion.
Right, exactly.
Well, we
That's
just
saved
had,
for
we
the
just
one
had a
at
couple
$5.
minutes, so.
I was gonna be 5 minutes for the water tank.
Yeah,
leave
don't,
2 hours.
and
for
don't
this.
forget, put in, you know, when you send a letter to people, ask them to check their top drawer just to make sure they didn't throw something in there.
All right, so I think the only item that we had to go back and talk about is the capital stabilization fund. So it's in here, and the number, did I s-
5 million.
5 million, yeah, okay.
We had 2.
We had said 2,
Where are you seeing? Fine.
Last
Oh,
two
yeah,
lines.
last two lines.
although we also, this spreadsheet that we had used was, I had 5 million on here because looking ahead to what was likely coming
Yeah.
in the fall,
Yeah.
it seemed like there
Oh,
was gonna
okay.
be roughly $5 million of free cash that might be requested for capital projects. But
Right.
that was like a back of the envelope calculation based on what was on the capital plan the last I looked. So,
I think we should go back to 2 million for that. For these purposes. What do you think?
Then what happens with the other 3?
No, I'm saying for the,
For the article.
For the article, Article 10, we go to 2 million. The 5 million that's referred to there is just for future.
Right.
Future town meeting.
Almost like somebody picked the wrong number off.
Yeah.
Right, like really, if we were doing it according to this, which is just a worksheet, and it was never meant to be a formal plan
Yeah.
or anything, but it would really mean that about $8.5 million would roll over, of this year's free cash, would roll over to next year's free cash, but we would kind of have already earmarked in our collective understanding that about $5 million of that was gonna go to, could be
Capital.
available for capital
Yeah.
projects in the fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that was just indicating like, oh, well, there'd be another like 3.5 that would be available for the following spring. But there also should be some additional free cash that comes in, but nowhere near the amount that we had this year, because we
Yeah.
didn't
Okay.
get an enormous building permit this year.
Mhm. Okay.
I'll make a motion to recommend with Articles 9 and 10 with the amount of $2 million.
I will second that.
All right, any further discussion? Jeff, you had mentioned how we would at some point need some parameters for how this stabilization fund could be used and things like that. How much needs to be determined before we do a vote on this?
Well, it all depends. I think this gets the parameter for the fund set up, but I think you just have to, there may be questions that will come on and say, what are the applicable or appropriate uses of that?
Mm-hmm.
That's not really in here outside of a capital item, which is not very well defined in our financial policies anyways.
Right.
So I think you set the fund up and then we can probably move from there to say, these are the applicable uses.
Okay.
What does MGL 40 Section 5B say? Does it give any kind of,
It's just the setup of a fund.
a fund in general?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
it's
so
not-
we could easily set the fund up without having to worry about the specifics of what type of capital we would use to fund.
Correct, because we have a capital outlay
Okay.
committee, so those are already uses
Okay.
that committee would
Right.
come forward with.
So I guess the point is the fact that there's no definition of quote-unquote capital doesn't preclude the selectmen from putting it on the warrant or town meeting from taking a vote.
No, it won't, because again, we have a capital policy, we have a capital
Okay.
outlay committee already, so
Yep.
we have that. But
Okay.
I think if you're going to grow this fund, my recommendation is
To have some specificity.
correct.
So
Okay.
something in the policies to address it.
Correct. Well, policies, yeah, you can do the policies to the fund, yes.
Yeah.
Because, the intent is not to put money in May and
Take it out. in
take it
September.
out in October. I mean, we have some time, I think, to do that. I think the point is that we know we have money available now, which may not be available in the future, so that's why we want to put it in now, and we can worry about some of those details later. Not much later, but we don't need them today.
And that would be discussed over the course of the next few months likely anyways, if that other committee
Mhm.
is formed and meets.
Right. I would think that would be a good thing for them to talk about.
Mhm.
I have not, I mean, obviously and that other committee or working group was mentioned at the selectmen's meeting Tuesday night. I think it had been mentioned 2 weeks before, but I have not received anything like a request to the chair to appoint someone to the committee or anything like that. I haven't received any information about when such a committee might be starting to meet. I don't have
I
any,
believe it's going to be after this town meeting, after the budget process.
yeah, and I haven't heard anything about plans for the makeup of the committee, who
Okay.
would serve on the committee.
Yeah, I
When
guess
they
it-
initially discussed it, I'm sorry, Alan.
No, go ahead, sorry.
No, when they initially discussed it, the Board of Selectmen, I thought it was sooner. I thought it was April that they had mentioned maybe trying to form it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned that, when it will be formed and when they initiate work, because if you wait until after town meeting, then you're gonna hit the summer.
Yeah.
And
This is something
town
we run
meeting in the
into every
fall
year.
doesn't come that much later than that. So
Yeah.
Right.
I think the intent, I would assume, would be to have, maybe not to present a plan to town meeting, but be well into developing a plan that maybe, you can bring up at town meeting, but it's at the point where, you're gonna, people are planning on how they're gonna do the budget for the, for the subsequent year. They wanna have some specificity also. So I think this is something which should begin hopefully quickly, whenever the
Because
selectmen.
The whole point was to not have us back into having to use free cash again if we don't.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually not accurate. It was to try and get it done before the budget process started, or get
Yeah.
a significant amount of it done before the budget process started, because then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for a lot.
Yeah, and then I
Better
think,
term.
I think they wanted to look at what would it mean not to use free cash.
Yes.
And, those are some tough discussions we're gonna have to have.
Mhm.
And the sooner we have them, the better.
I understand that, but my team is the one that puts a lot of that together. We don't have time between now and town meeting, so this is gonna be something that's gonna be after.
Oh,
And we'll go
absolutely.
through the summer.
Oh,
Summer's
absolutely.
when we're gonna have more time to
Oh,
focus on it, so.
I'm just saying, it'll be difficult,
Yeah.
a lot of times, to get people together to have, to have those meetings.
Yeah.
You know,
I
your
think
your
it's gonna
people
be-
can put together what they ask you to put together, just whether they, you can have the people to
Yeah,
to
we
be
know,
at those.
we know right off the bat, we've got to put that baseline budget together for next year, and we know
Yeah.
that that's going to be a significant use of free cash. And
Yeah.
then we're going to work down from there, is what it's
Yeah.
going to be, so.
Right.
Yep,
But it's forming the committee and stuff even before we get to
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
There's things that could be done without going
Yeah, and we're
at,
doing-
going at
we're-
you
we're-
guys.
We're already starting to work on that,
Right.
because we know it's coming, so we're,
Okay.
Megan and Molly are working on the 27
Yeah.
wage scales and getting that in, so we'll have a good first look at least the town and shared services side.
It's not your
Sooner
group
than
I'm
later.
worried about, it's us.
Right.
Yeah.
It is not your group I'm worried about, Jeff, it's the rest of the committees, like actually getting people to commit to it and then have a plan
Right.
so
and
that the
agree
work
on-
does get done.
Yeah.
You know,
agree
we've
on some
talked about this
goals
for
and-
years,
yeah.
Yeah.
at least 2, if not longer, so.
This is not gonna be a one-meeting committee.
No,
No. I mean, just, doing the sort of back of the envelope calculation, we're roughly putting $7.5 million of free cash into the budget. If we were not putting that in, we would likely be looking at cuts on the order of $4 million on the school side, $3 million on general government side, $500,000 in facilities, because the shared expenses are generally not non-discretionary. I suppose we could decide not to buy any police cruisers 1 year or something like that, but you can't delay more than 1 year, and that's not buying you that much. So,
Yeah, I mean, the only time it's a little bit discretionary is if we know we're gonna, hypothetically, then, not using free cash means eliminating X positions.
Yeah.
Whatever that number is, then there's not gonna be as much spent on health insurance or
Right.
maybe pension. But that isn't gonna be the major money that we're talking about.
no, and so they're really looking at cuts at that magnitude. There's no way to accomplish that without touching personnel.
80+% of your budget is personnel, so.
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
that's it, so it's cuts of personnel and services.
Right, or we decide just, to pile all the trash in the streets and we don't pick any up all year, that could help save money. I mean, not to say that there's no other place for money to be saved, but not at that magnitude.
Limited options, yes.
Yeah,
Right,
I mean, I'm just
right.
wondering if we do have a committee, would they look at not, all or nothing, but they look at something in between also, to see what happens.
well,
What
because
involved?
we've used free cash to balance the budget for years. I know we want to get away from it, but the
Yeah.
reality is, there's always been some level of free cash
Yeah.
used, so, those are, it's looking at the different scenarios, right?
Yeah.
But that's,
It can't be just all or nothing.
Yeah.
Correct.
There's a number of items to look at, obviously. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves right now, but,
Yeah,
you're right.
There's some stuff to look at. There's, potential new growth that we have to factor in as well, so.
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not
we're gonna
be
get,
a,
we're gonna get additional fund, additional tax revenues from FM Global
Yeah.
as an example.
Yeah, exactly, so.
It's not all doom and gloom.
No, just
Okay.
mostly doom and
Three-quarters.
But I
gloom.
think, I haven't confirmed this number, but I was in a meeting and somebody said that there were 60 communities looking at overrides this year. So it's, as I've said in the past, everybody's gonna be looking for it.
You know-
2.5 just doesn't allow for.
We're not
Especially given
alone.
the
Yeah,
inflation
was-
that has happened in the
Yeah.
last few years, and then the fact that then that later caught up with municipal salaries.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, did I
Yeah.
hit you?
No,
Sorry.
You must,
Oh, you too.
it's somebody. Obviously, I was,
All right.
Okay.
looking at the website of the town of Georgetown, because they supposedly had a pretty good website I wanted to look at, and they're looking at an override this year, and that's a small community. It's like, don't quote me the exact number, it was something like $6 million. So they had a calculator, so if you put in the typical house value in Georgetown with that override, it's like $1,900,
Wow.
you know?
Oh,
But that's a small town. That's
Right,
different
but I'm
than
saying
what we,
that
yes.
they're-
In a small
you know,
town, that's what
Yes.
you're doing, yeah.
They're looking at a,
Still need all
Big
those
amount of money.
things
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
run.
Yeah.
I mean, I always use the number, this is just, rough estimate, of something, every $1 million, of additional tax means like plus or minus $70 on the tax bill.
The
Just
average
a-
homeowner's
just-
tax bill.
And that's rough. I mean, it could be 60, could be 80, but that's, pretty good number.
All right, well,
Deborah, can you help me out here? Do we have an open motion?
We have an open motion by
Thank you.
Mr. Fleming.
What is the motion,
seconded by
please?
Mr. Slater to recommend both Articles 9 and 10, but changing the amount from what is there as the formula to 2 million.
ooh, we went way off.
Yeah, all right.
There's nothing about
Thank
it.
you.
You ended up at Georgetown.
Yeah.
So
All right.
we're voting on Articles 9 and 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we are going to go along with the selectmen to get together and see what we're doing with this article?
Well, the selectmen are going to make a vote of whether or not it goes on the warrant.
This is our
If
recommendation.
it is on the
This is our
warrant, then
recommendation.
this is our recommendation.
We prefer to do it this way.
Yes.
Okay.
If the
Just wanted to
selectmen
make sure.
choose not to put it on the warrant, then obviously we can't discuss it at town meeting. We have already requested that they put it on the warrant. We can, say like, if it is on the warrant, then this is our recommendation.
Okay. And I did check with Mary Lou Fulham today about if we wanted to get some people behind us, and we would need 100 signatures to be able to get it on the warrant without the selectmen.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that we could go forward on and be prepared if they decide not to allow it on the thing.
I think if they did, what did Mary Lou say about when that would have to be in
We would have to give it to them on Tuesday.
before they close
Yeah.
the warrant?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But I think we would be able to scrounge up 100 people signatures.
Probably you won't know if they're gonna put it on the warrant until Tuesday.
Right. Exactly.
You won't know until Tuesday whether they're gonna vote to put it on the warrant,
Right.
Right.
so.
But, if you were,
But-
go ahead.
But in the interest of trying to work together, we've started the discussion, which is a step in the right direction, right? So we were at Board of Selectmen, we've started the discussion. They know. Hopefully they'll put it on so it could be a discussion on town meeting floor, which would inform town meeting members. If not, it's going to come up over the summer when we have hopefully have this committee meeting. I mean, I feel hopeful that that's going to happen, so.
I just wanted to make sure that you knew that there was another alternative.
Yeah.
And that we would be able to meet that alternative.
Yeah, I think
mean,
that's
that-
important information.
Yeah,
No,
I
it's
mean,
good
that-
information. I
that-
don't disagree with that. I just
Yeah.
don't
I mean,
know.
that option is certainly possible in the fall if nothing is put on.
Right. We certainly
these
request
town
it again.
meetings. Right.
That would be number 3.
Right.
For
4?
Yes.
Oh,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
4. Could be 3, but I think it's 4. Multiple times, anyway.
Yeah. So I didn't know how you would, if you were interested in doing that because of the number of times that we have tried to work with people and get this done. Okay.
Okay.
I think that's an important tool for us to remember that we have. And maybe best to use it in the future if needed.
Can we could, in our presentation, correct, could we discuss how we would reiterate how we would like to see free cash used?
Yes,
So if this didn't
absolutely.
make it to the warrant, we could really emphasize it in the presentation.
Absolutely.
That, free cash should be used for capital.
Right. Town meeting can't be deliberating on that particular, the particulars of establishing a capital stabilization fund if it's not on the warrant. They obviously can't be voting on anything if it's not on the warrant. But I think we as a FinCom can still make it clear in our annual presentation that guidance for use of free cash is ideally for capital projects and one-time monies,
Okay.
and one-time requests. And that, I think we could say that we had even considered, that we would like the body to consider a stabilization fund in the future or something like that. I
Okay.
think we could, make our point there.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's another
Okay.
way.
Yeah. All right. So I think we still need to take a vote, right? Okay. So the motion before us is to recommend that we establish a capital stabilization fund and initially fund it with $2 million.
Motion to recommend.
Oh, we already have a motion.
We have a
Sorry.
motion. I'm just
All
reminding,
right.
right. So let's put it to a vote. All in
It's a long
favor?
night.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Jeff, could you make sure that that there's a revision to the draft yellow sheet for that 2 million rather than 5?
Yep.
Thank
you.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Or at least you can tell them that FinCom recommends too. If they want to
They want
out a
to put
yellow
5.
sheet with 5,
Go right ahead.
they're free to
It'll
do
be
that.
okay.
Happy to accommodate.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's it for special town meeting articles. The other special town meeting is just land use. I don't think there's anything there that FinCom needs to make a recommendation
Not that I'm
on.
aware of it. Everything was moved over there. I think there's a article about the moderator's term. There's some other
Yeah,
stuff that's being
yeah.
discussed right now.
They look all
Hero-
non-financial.
Hero Act, a couple of other items.
I mean, that was,
Nothing with a
the
fund.
exemption, I guess, has a financial implication. We do discuss that it would cost potentially money out of the overlay account, which is why I wanted to make
Yeah.
that. That was the only one that looked like it was financial.
Okay.
Yeah, Can I make one more point on, should we send a letter or a memo to the selectmen that we took these positions on the special town meeting articles?
Sure, I can do that. All right. And then, any other topics for discussion? I think we kind of already wandered off a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we've covered.
Okay. Action items, I need to work on the letter for the budget book, and then I need to send an email to the Board of Selectmen. I think that's it in terms of action items coming out of this meeting. So I think then it's just, if there's nothing else anybody wants to discuss, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All right. Motion by Eric, seconded by Alan. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you very much.